When twin sisters discovered they were both pregnant on the same day, they celebrated together. But when the DNA results came back, their world shattered completely. What they found out would destroy their family forever. In the small village of Okafor, nestled between rolling hills and ancient baobab trees, lived twin sisters Amara and Omara. These identical twins had shared everything since their first breath 25 years ago. They wore the same colorful Ankara fabrics, braided each other's hair with the same intricate patterns, and even fell in love with men from neighboring villages within weeks of each other. The morning sun cast golden rays across the red clay courtyard, where both sisters sat grinding pepper for the evening meal. Amara, the elder by 3 minutes, suddenly felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She dropped the grinding stone and rushed behind their compound, where she vomited violently. Omara, feeling an inexplicable connection to her twin's distress, also felt her stomach churn and followed suit. Their mother, Neka, a wise woman who had delivered countless babies in the village, observed her daughters with knowing eyes. She had seen these symptoms countless times before. The twins looked at each other, then at their mother, a mix of hope and fear dancing in their identical dark eyes. 3 days later, both sisters walked nervously to the small clinic in the neighboring town. Dr. Emeka, a young physician who had returned from the city to serve his people, conducted the tests with professional care. When he returned with the results, his face bore a mixture of amazement and concern. Both pregnancy tests were positive. The twins embraced, laughing and crying simultaneously, their joy echoing across the clinic walls. They had always dreamed of experiencing motherhood together, and now that dream was becoming reality. The news spread through the village like Harmattan winds. Elder Oba, the village's most respected elder, stroked his white beard thoughtfully. In all his 73 years, he had never witnessed identical twins becoming pregnant on the exact same day. The villagers whispered among themselves, some calling it a blessing from the ancestors, others wondering if mysterious forces were at work. Kola, Amara's beloved, was a hard-working farmer known throughout the region for his prize-winning yams. When he learned of the pregnancy, he danced with joy, already envisioning teaching his child the ancient farming techniques passed down through generations. Meanwhile, Segun, Omara's love, worked as a skilled carpenter, crafting beautiful furniture from local wood. He immediately began planning a cradle that would be worthy of his future child. The twins' pregnancies progressed beautifully in parallel. They experienced morning sickness on the same days, felt their first kicks within hours of each other, and their bellies grew at an identical pace. The village women marveled at this synchronicity, gathering around them during market days to touch their stomachs and offer blessings. Neka, their mother, prepared traditional herbs and remedies, ensuring both daughters received the best care. She cooked hearty soups with goat meat and fresh vegetables, believing nutrition was crucial for healthy pregnancies. Chukwu, their father, a respected palm wine tapper, proudly told everyone who would listen about his daughter's miraculous pregnancies. As the months passed, the twins' bond seemed to strengthen even further. They would sit under the great Iroko tree in their compound, sharing dreams about their children growing up together, playing the same games they had played, inheriting the same close relationship that had defined their own lives. Ifunanya, the village's most notorious gossip, began spreading whispers that made some villagers uncomfortable. She questioned how two sisters could have such perfectly synchronized pregnancies. Her words planted seeds of doubt in a few minds, though most dismissed her concerns as the ramblings of a jealous woman who had struggled with infertility for years. One evening, as the twins sat weaving baskets by lamplight, they decided to share their deepest secret. They had never told anyone, not even their parents, about a night 6 months earlier when their boyfriends had been away on a trading journey. A traveling merchant had come to the village, a handsome man with smooth words and expensive gifts. Both sisters had been attracted to him, though neither had acted on their feelings. Or so they thought. That night, after drinking palm wine during a village celebration, the merchant had approached Amara when she was alone, walking back from the river. In the darkness, with alcohol clouding her judgment, she had allowed him to seduce her. What she didn't know was that the merchant had also approached Omara later that same night, mistaking her for Amara in the darkness. Omara, thinking the merchant was showing special interest in her alone, had also succumbed to his charms. Neither sister knew about the other's encounter. Each believed she had been the merchant's only conquest that night. Each carried the shame and guilt silently, never speaking of it even to each other. They convinced themselves it was a momentary lapse that would never affect their relationships with their beloved partners. Now, as their pregnancies advanced, both sisters experienced moments of fear. What if the timing meant something? What if their children bore resemblance to the traveling merchant rather than their devoted partners? But they pushed these thoughts away, focusing on the joy of impending motherhood and the support of their loving community. Dr. Amika suggested that given the unusual circumstances of their synchronized pregnancies, it would be wise to conduct paternity tests after the births. This was not a common practice in their rural area, but he had access to modern medical technology through his connections with the regional hospital in the state capital. The suggestion made both sisters nervous, but they agreed, telling themselves it was merely a precaution. After all, they had nothing to hide from their partners, who loved them unconditionally and eagerly awaited the arrival of their children. The births occurred within 24 hours of each other, exactly as everyone had predicted. Amara delivered a healthy baby boy at sunrise, and Omara welcomed a baby girl as the sun set the following day. The village celebrated for 3 days straight, with drums beating, women singing traditional songs, and men sharing palm wine under the stars. Both babies were beautiful, with perfect features and strong cries that announced their arrival to the world. Kola wept with joy holding his son, already seeing his own features in the tiny face. Segun cradled his daughter, whispering sweet promises about the wonderful life he would provide for her. For 3 blissful weeks, the extended family lived in perfect harmony. The twins took turns nursing each other's babies, sharing the duties of motherhood as they had shared everything else throughout their lives. Their partners worked extra hours to provide for their growing families, and their parents beamed with pride at becoming grandparents twice over. But Ifunanya's gossip had reached the ears of a distant relative who worked in the state capital. This relative, who had studied modern medicine, suggested that the synchronicity was too perfect to be coincidental. She planted doubts about the paternity of both children, suggesting that perhaps the twins had been involved with the same man, without knowing it. These whispers eventually reached Dr. Emeka, who had been observing the babies during routine checkups. As a medical professional, he noticed certain physical characteristics that seemed inconsistent with the supposed fathers. The babies had distinctive features, a particular shape to their ears, and unusual birthmarks that neither Kola nor Segun possessed. One evening, Dr. Emeka approached both couples with gentle concern. He explained that while he was happy for their joy, his professional duty required him to suggest paternity testing. He had noticed some genetic markers that warranted investigation. He assured them that such tests were purely precautionary, and that regardless of the results, the children would be loved and cared for. The families agreed to the testing, though both sisters felt a growing dread in their hearts. Deep down, they both suspected what the results might reveal, but neither was prepared to voice their fears to the other or to their partners. The samples were sent to a laboratory in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, where advanced genetic testing could be performed. The wait for results felt like an eternity. During this time, both sisters found themselves praying to their ancestors, begging for forgiveness for their past mistakes, and pleading for their families to remain intact. Kola and Segun noticed their partner's increased anxiety, but attributed it to the normal stress of new motherhood. They continued to be loving, supportive partners, sharing midnight feeding duties and comforting the babies when they cried. Their dedication to their families only made the twins feel worse about their hidden secret. The morning the results arrived, Dr. Emeka called both families to his clinic. The small room felt suffocating as 8 adults and 2 babies crowded inside. The doctor's face was grave as he opened the sealed envelope containing the laboratory report. The test results were devastating and definitive. Neither Kola nor Segun was the biological father of the children they had been lovingly caring for. Even more shocking, both babies shared the same biological father, a man whose DNA was not in any database, indicating he was likely from outside their immediate region. The silence in the room was deafening. Kola stared at the baby he had believed was his son, his face cycling through confusion, hurt, and betrayal. Segun's hands trembled as he processed the information, looking between the baby girl in his arms and the woman he thought he knew completely. Both sisters broke down simultaneously, their synchronized tears matching their synchronized pregnancies. The truth they had hidden finally erupted like a dam bursting. Between sobs, Amara confessed to her encounter with the traveling merchant. Moments later, Omara revealed her own experience with the same man. The revelation that they had both been with the same man on the same night, each unaware of the other's involvement, created a new layer of betrayal and confusion. The twins realized they had been manipulated by a skilled predator who had taken advantage of their identical appearance and their community's hospitality. Kola stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The man who had been planning to teach his son farming techniques, who had already begun saving money for the boy's education, who had named the child after his own grandfather, felt his world crumbling. Without a word, he placed the baby gently on the examination table and walked out of the clinic. Segun remained seated, staring at the little girl who had inherited none of his features but whom he had loved with all his heart. His carpenter's hands, so skilled at creating beautiful things, now felt useless. He looked at Omara with eyes full of pain and disappointment before following Kola's example and leaving the clinic. The twins were left alone with Dr. Emeka, their parents, and two innocent babies who would grow up bearing the consequences of their mother's momentary lapses in judgment. Chukwu, their father, aged years in those few minutes. The man who had proudly announced his grandchildren to the entire village now faced the shame of explaining the truth to his community. Nneka, their mother, felt torn between anger at her daughter's deception and protective love for her grandchildren. She had suspected something was amiss during the pregnancies, but had chosen to believe in her daughter's faithfulness. Now she faced the reality that her family might never be the same. Elder Oba was summoned to provide counsel. The elderly man listened to the entire story with the patience of someone who had witnessed many family crises over the decades. He reminded everyone that while the adults had made mistakes, the children were innocent and deserved love and care regardless of the circumstances of their conception. The village's reaction was mixed. Some residents, led by Ifunanya's continuing gossip, treated the twins as pariahs who had brought shame upon their family and community. Others, following Elder Oba's wisdom, focused on supporting the innocent children and helping the family heal from this traumatic revelation. Kola and Segun both struggled with their emotions in the days following the revelation. Kola moved back to his family compound, unable to face the daily reminder of his pain. Segun continued to visit occasionally, drawn by the love he had developed for the baby girl, but unable to reconcile his feelings for Omara with the betrayal he felt. The twins found themselves isolated in their shame. The sister bond that had been their greatest strength now felt like a curse, as each was a constant reminder to the other of their shared mistake. They could no longer look at each other without remembering that night and its devastating consequences. 3 months after the truth was revealed, a surprising visitor arrived in the village. The traveling merchant had returned, unaware of the chaos his actions had created. Word spread quickly through the village about his presence, and within hours, an angry crowd had gathered at the marketplace where he was attempting to sell his wares. Confronted with the evidence of his actions and the consequences for the families involved, the merchant initially denied responsibility. However, when Dr. Emeka threatened to involve law enforcement and potentially have him arrested for deception and abandonment of his children, the merchant's attitude changed. The man, whose name was revealed to be Chikezie, admitted to his actions but claimed he had not intended to cause such devastation. He explained that he had been traveling from village to village, selling goods and seeking temporary companionship. He had not realized he was involved with twin sisters, or that his actions would result in pregnancies. Elder Oba convened a traditional council to decide how to handle the situation. According to customary law, Chikezie bore responsibility for the children he had fathered. The council demanded that he either marry both twins, an arrangement that was culturally complex but not unheard of in certain circumstances, or provide substantial financial support for the children's upbringing. Chikezie, faced with the prospect of imprisonment or social banishment, chose to accept financial responsibility. He revealed that his trading business was actually quite profitable and that he could afford to support both children. However, he made it clear that he had no intention of settling down in their village or playing an active role in the children's lives. A formal agreement was reached where Chikezi would send monthly payments for the children's care, education, and health needs until they reached adulthood. He would also visit twice a year to check on their progress, though this arrangement was viewed more as a legal obligation than a paternal relationship. The resolution provided practical support for the children, but did little to heal the emotional wounds within the families. Kola and Segun remained distant from their former partners, though both men struggled with their attachment to the children they had briefly considered their own. 6 months after the revelation, Omara made a difficult decision. Unable to bear the daily reminder of her shame and the loss of Segun's love, she decided to move to the state capital where she could start fresh. Her cousin had offered her work in a small business, and she felt that distance might help everyone heal. This decision created new pain for Amara, who faced the prospect of separation from her twin for the first time in their lives. The bond that had defined their existence was being severed by the consequences of their shared mistake. Their synchronized lives were becoming unsynchronized, their paths diverging in ways they had never imagined possible. Neka begged Omara to reconsider, arguing that the children needed to know each other as siblings, and that separation would only create more problems. But Omara felt that her presence in the village was a constant source of pain for everyone involved, especially Segun, whom she still loved despite their separation. The night before Omara's departure, the twins sat together one final time under the Iroko tree, where they had shared so many dreams. They spoke honestly about their regrets, their love for each other, and their hopes for their children's futures. They promised to stay in contact and to ensure that their children would know they were siblings, regardless of the geographical distance between them. Amara remained in the village with her son, gradually rebuilding relationships with her family and community. She focused on becoming the best mother possible, using Chikezi's financial support to ensure her son received good nutrition, health care, and eventually education. She never remarried, dedicating herself entirely to raising her child and caring for her aging parents. Kola eventually forgave Amara, though their romantic relationship never resumed. He occasionally visited to check on the boy, recognizing that the child was innocent of his mother's mistakes. Over time, he developed a protective, uncle-like relationship with the boy, teaching him some farming techniques and serving as a positive male role model. Omara established a new life in the state capital, working hard to provide for her daughter while dealing with the loneliness of separation from her family. She sent regular letters and money back to the village, maintaining connection with her twin and ensuring her daughter understood her heritage and family history. Segun surprised everyone by visiting Omara in the capital after a year of separation. His feelings for her had never completely died, and he missed the child he had briefly considered his daughter. After many long conversations and much soul-searching, he decided to propose to Omara despite everything that had happened. Their reunion was not immediate or simple. Segun required time to fully process his emotions and rebuild trust. Omara had to demonstrate her commitment to honesty and faithfulness. But love proved stronger than betrayal, and after another year of careful courtship, they married in a small ceremony attended by both families. The children grew up knowing the truth of their parentage, but also understanding the complex love that surrounded them. Amara's son developed a strong relationship with both Kola and his grandfather Chukwu, learning valuable life skills and moral lessons. Omara's daughter thrived with Segun as her stepfather, growing up in the capital with access to better educational opportunities. The twins maintained their connection despite the distance, speaking regularly and ensuring their children visited each other during school holidays. The synchronized bond of their youth evolved into a mature, complicated relationship marked by shared experiences, mutual support, and an understanding of human frailty. Chikezi kept his financial commitments but remained a distant figure in the children's lives. He visited as promised, but never developed meaningful relationships with his biological offspring. The children learned to view him as a benefactor rather than a father figure, finding their real family connections in the people who loved and raised them daily. Elder Oba often used their story as a teaching tool for young people in the village, emphasizing the importance of faithfulness, honesty in relationships, and the far-reaching consequences of momentary decisions. He pointed out that while mistakes cannot be undone, families can heal and adapt when guided by love, wisdom, and forgiveness. Dr. Emeka continued to monitor the children's health and development, noting with professional satisfaction that both were growing into healthy, intelligent young people despite the complicated circumstances of their conception. He often reflected on the case as an example of how modern medicine could reveal truths that traditional society might prefer to keep hidden. The village gradually accepted the new reality, with most residents focusing on the positive aspects of the story: the children's health and happiness, the family's resilience, and the community's capacity for forgiveness. Ifunanya's gossip was eventually overshadowed by more current village news, though the twins' story remained a cautionary tale for future generations. Years later, when the children were teenagers, they would sometimes ask difficult questions about their father and the circumstances of their birth. Both Amara and Omara had learned to answer these questions honestly but age-appropriately, emphasizing that while their conception involved mistakes, their existence was a blessing that brought joy to many people. The story became a testament to the complexity of human relationships and the power of families to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. It demonstrated that love takes many forms: romantic love, family love, community love, and that healing is possible even after devastating betrayals. In the end, the twins' mystery pregnancy taught everyone involved valuable lessons about honesty, forgiveness, and the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions. While their synchronized pregnancy had begun with joy and celebration, its revelation led to growth, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. The children grew up to be productive members of society, each carrying forward the best lessons from their complicated family history while building their own paths toward happiness and fulfillment. Their story served as a reminder that our origins do not define our destinies, and that love and determination can overcome even the most challenging circumstances. As the sun set over the village of Okafor, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, life continued with its eternal rhythm of joy and sorrow, mistakes and redemption, separation and reunion. The twins' story became part of the village's collective memory, a tale that would be told and retold to future generations as a reminder of both human frailty and human resilience. The baobab trees that had witnessed their childhood continued to stand as silent sentinels, their ancient wisdom offering comfort to all who sought shelter beneath their branches. And somewhere in the distance, children could be heard playing, their laughter echoing across the compound as they created new stories, new bonds, and new hopes for the future. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale of the pregnant twins? Their story reminds us that our actions have consequences that ripple far beyond ourselves, affecting innocent children and entire families. It teaches us about the importance of honesty in relationships and the power of forgiveness to heal even the deepest wounds. The twins learned that synchronicity in life is not always a blessing. Sometimes it can reveal truths we would rather keep hidden. But they also discovered that family bonds, while tested by betrayal and shame, can be strengthened through honest communication and mutual support. Their children grew up understanding that family is defined not just by biology, but by love, care, and commitment. Kola and Segun showed that true love sometimes means staying connected even when romantic relationships end, putting the needs of innocent children above personal pain. Most importantly, their story demonstrates that redemption is possible for everyone involved in difficult situations. Mistakes do not define us permanently. How we respond to those mistakes and learn from them shapes our character and our future. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How would you have handled such a situation? What do you think about the choices made by each character? If you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest African tales. Thanks for watching, and stay blessed.